So we just wish the best and Merry Christmas to Richard Mouw, Richard and Phyliss, and their family, Dirk, his wife and kids. You know, our family knew the Mows all the way back from Grand Rapids when we were in the '70s, going to First CRC, Christian Reform. And Richard was a young professor, relatively young, at Calvin College, philosophy professor. And for some reason, my dad and Richard were kind of pals. And they would regularly have social gatherings at our house or their house. Sometimes we'd go out to a park and have a picnic, the whole family. Richard back then was, when he was teaching at Calvin, he would often be seen playing frisbee golf around the campus, smoking his pipe, and gaining notoriety. They call him and three other professors, Plantinga, Walterstorff, and Marsden, the so-called Fab Four of Calvin College, which I actually have a problem with because it glorifies philosophy too much. And nonetheless, Richard actually never spoke to me as a person. You know, I was like, I think he had that kind of hierarchical thinking. You know, you don't talk to the kids and expect the kids to only speak when spoken to. So I can't say that I was like a real friend with good old Richard or Phyliss. They were just friends of my parents. And Richard himself actually didn't even attend Calvin College as far as I know. I think he went to Houghton College or something like that. But anyways, later on, around I guess it was early '80s, he came out to Fuller Seminary in Pasadena out here. I'm in California now. And then we moved to California in '84, our family. And so Mouw was here a year or two before us, I guess, if I recall correctly. And then he became president. He started out as a professor, then he became president of Fuller Seminary. And I was still going to Calvin, or I actually in '85 I began going to Calvin. Finished my first bachelor degree in '89. Did a few things. Eventually returned to Calvin, got a second bachelor's degree in English and education, and got a teaching degree. And also started going over to the seminary around that time, but never stayed there for very long. And then I went off and taught, came back here to California and taught school for a few years. Then I returned to Calvin Seminary again. Finished a year there, then I transferred to Fuller, Pasadena, and that's where I finished my MDiv. And would see Richard around campus every now and then. And actually took one of his classes. But once again, he never spoke to me. He never greeted me. We were like strangers passing in the night. I don't know why, you know. I mean, maybe he thought, well, maybe I don't want to be treated any different than any other student or something. I don't know. It's kind of awkward, but. And then I kind of located where he lived in La Cañada and would drop a card to him every now and then and say, hey, how you doing? And, you know, Merry Christmas, things like that. Try to build up some rapport with him, but I never really actually did, you know. I mean, I guess his mind, I'm always the kid, and he's always the senior spokesman or something like that. But Dirk, their son Dirk was 1 year older than me. We were in the same high school together. And when we did have social gatherings, we wouldn't really hang around too much. He's a little different than me. I was more of an athletic type of person. He was kind of a intellectual. I don't think he played any sports. But and that was the thing about Richard too. I don't think he wasn't much of an athlete. Frisbee golf was probably his biggest sport that he ever played. I know he studied in Canada for a while, and then he got his doctorate, I think, at the University of Chicago. And then I guess then he went to Calvin, started teaching at Calvin. And he's still on the circuit, speaking circuit. He's not the president at Fuller anymore. He may be teaching a class there, though. I think he might have taken time off for a few years and then came back. I know he was teaching at Pepperdine for a while as well. I don't know if that's still going on. And I've noticed, I look at his things he writes every now and then. In the recent years, he became more clear-cut in his political position, more liberal, or anti-Trump for sure. Prior to that, I think he had kind of kept it sort of secret, tried to play the middle, moderate, reasonable position without letting his politics be known very, very clearly. But it became apparent that he's more liberal than I realized, and also if you read some of the things closely enough, you find out he's what they call a physicalist, and apparently close to what Nancy Murphy is, in not believing in soul, which really kind of shocked me when I realized that he doesn't believe in soul. I mean, I think that would be something. It's like you believe in that as a Christian by default. And if you're a teacher at Calvin College, you would make a profession, I think, that would include that. So I was a little taken aback when I realized that. And Nancy Murphy was not very kind to me either, by the way. I didn't even know who she was when I arrived at Fuller. I had never heard her name before. She's not in the literature canon that they prescribe at Calvin College or seminary. She's not part of that. And yet Calvin keeps inviting Mouw back all the time to speak. He's like one of their great heroes. I don't know if enough people actually know what he actually believes about soul, anyways, and how maybe liberal he is. Of course, a lot of Calvin professors are actually more liberal than people realize as well, even though it's got a reputation for being conservative. Because a lot of the professors actually, not a lot, well, a fair amount I would say, probably actually come from outside the Calvin Christian Reformed tradition. They can't get that many homegrown Calvin CRC people with doctorates to come back and teach there. So they have to just depend on people making the profession of faith from outside the tradition, even though some of these may be just making it without sincerity just because they need a job. You don't realize that when you're a student coming in. You just think, oh, they're all the same. They all believe the same. No. A lot of them don't even want to attend the Christian Reformed Church. Maybe not a lot, but they're supposed to attend a Christian Reformed Church. Become members of one of them. I don't know how many actually do or how they track that very well. Anyways, this is about Richard Mouw, and so, anyways, Mouw was less CRC than I realized, even though maybe he just attended first CRC because they were required to, as being Calvin professors. And so I don't even know why my dad actually was so close friends with him. Maybe just because they're not, I don't think, on the same. My dad was a homegrown Calvin CRC pastor, more conservative than others, but you wouldn't know he's conservative so much. He's not. He doesn't seem like a stereotypical conservative, because the stereotype of conservatives is that we're mean, stern, and Calvinists. Of course, that's a negative stereotype now, especially out here. But the problem is that the stereotype of Calvinists is ridiculous, because a lot of us who grew up Calvinists, went to Calvin College, grew up in the Christian Reformed Church, which is based on a lot of Calvin's teachings. The stereotype of that is completely erroneous. I hear people talk about it they think they know what Calvinism is from studying the literature, but they don't know it from what it really is. Inside, from the inside. So I'll leave it at that. I just wanted to touch base, and hopefully Mouw might read this, see this, hear this, listen to this. Otherwise, if you can pass it on to Richard. Merry Christmas to Rich and Phyliss and Dirk and all the kids and grandkids. God be with you and bless you.